Hey, what a beautiful day, and I am so glad that you're here today. I'm Rita Hickman. I'm a shiatsu massage therapist and body-mind expert, and I specialize in helping women reverse things like stress eating or Hey, I'm back. Hey, Deb. So I help women deal with issues like stress eating or diseases caused by job burnout or burnout in other parts of your life, whether it's relationship or family or whatever it may be. But usually burnout is pretty multifaceted. So today we're talking about traditional Chinese medicine and IBS. So one of the reasons, one of the causes, one of the things that made me get into healing was when I hit 30, I had IBS, pretty severe, for about 10 years. Hey, Annette, good to see you. And Lillian's here too. Awesome. So I'd had IBS, and what that looked like for me was every morning I spent in the bathroom. Hey, Janae, my sister's here. Nice to see her. I spent every morning in the bathroom and with fluids coming out of every orifice. And also my husband would sit there and look at me every morning while I was waking up. And I didn't just have anger. I didn't just have frustration. I had rage. I had, that sharp edge. Hey, Chris, nice to see you. I had that sharp edge of rage every day. So it was an emotional thing. It was a physical thing. I was miserable. And I spent that way for years and years. And then when I hit 30, I said, it's one of those milestones. I said, I can't keep living like this. I can't keep wasting half of my life, the majority of my life, feeling terrible with these abdominal issues. And so, of course, the first thing that you do is you go to the doctor, and the doctor, refers you to a specialist. And the specialist, gastroenterologist says, aha, you have IBS. So let's give you some medication for that. Let's give you, some drugs that will help you deal with the symptoms. And while I was in the office, I said to him, well, I noticed that when I drink water before I go to bed, the symptoms are less. I'm not as angry. I don't have as many problems. And I said, could that have something to do with it? He says, I really don't know. I mean, here's this gastroenterologist who's a specialist with issues of the abdominal. Hey, Linda. And I'm in crisis. I've been dealing with this for years. And he says, well, I don't know if water could be affecting IBS. I'm not familiar with that. And that was a real eye-opener for me about Western medicine. And I said, you know what? I have to start investigating this further. My solutions are better than the medication that he's giving me. So I took the medication for a couple days, and it didn't really help, but the water helped. And I said, I have to find other things that work on this. Now, interestingly enough, I then went to I drove down to Kentucky with a friend, and I went to a conference on Native American wisdom, elders. It was a beautiful spiritual sort of thing. And when I came away from that conference, I hadn't had any energy work done. I hadn't had any healing work done, but I was affected so powerfully. I had these doors opened of emotion so powerfully that when I came home and I woke up, I didn't have any symptoms. I didn't change anything that I did, but I didn't have any symptoms for a month. And then after a month, the symptoms started to come back. Now, I wasn't taking, the medication right now. And I was like, wow, these symptoms are starting to come back. You know how they come back gradually? And I looked at it and I said, okay, so clearly there is a body-mind connection with what makes me feel better and what makes me feel worse. So combined with this emotional piece, with this, if I drink water, my symptoms are less, that really, that almost, it just drags you to complementary medicine. It just says, you know what, there's something else going on here. And I studied indigenous medicines for a long time, for about 10 years. And it was very cool. Ojibwe, Oneida, Cherokee, went down to Colombia in South America and did some studying there. And what I love about indigenous medicines is that it's very metaphorical. It's very about using metaphors in the mind and the subconscious to help you heal, which was cool and a little limiting until I found traditional Chinese medicine, until I found Asian medicine, shiatsu, and finally I had the answers, the solutions for the problems, the physical health problems that I was dealing with in my life. Because I still dealt with abdominal and gastrointestinal issues, up and down and here and there. And traditional Chinese medicine gave me a really good paradigm shift about how to look at illness and disease. So many times when you go to someone who's into traditional Chinese medicine, their focus, their main focus, especially if they're into healing, will be, these are the points on your body that we work. And if you work this point, let's say on your arm, it's going to help you out with this. Or if you, do acupuncture and you put this needle in this meridian, it's going to help you with this. And that is an important piece. But I think a lot of people missed one of the bigger ideas of Asian medicine, which is life is about being in balance. It's about finding a balance for yourself that you are willing to live with. So here's a thought to think for the day. You are always in balance, and you might not like the balance that you're in, but the symptoms that you have are a direct result of the actions and the choices and the environment that you live in. When you start thinking about that, when you start thinking that you actually have influence and power and some control over how you feel, over how sick you get, it's a real game changer. And that was one of the biggest things that traditional Chinese medicine gave me. The other thing that it gave me was this idea that, which I'd already found when I was 30, that our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions have a direct effect on our body. And remember, I woke up angry and furious and in a rage every morning. And our body has a direct effect on our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. They're very intertwined. So that took me down the rabbit hole of body-mind medicine, which fits really well with traditional Chinese medicine because it's about how everything is integrated and you really can't get away from it. So let's say you're dealing with IBS. Let's say that's one of the main problems that you have right now. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, the first thing that you do with any situation, any appointment, is you evaluate and you watch and you see what's going on. You have that observer. You start to notice patterns. You start to look for connections. When you're in a TCM appointment, many times, they'll look at your eyes and they'll look at your tongue and they'll check out your pulse and they'll look at your skin. Hey, Beth, good to see you. And they will take all of this information and it'll come together as a bigger picture of what's going on. And they will address whether it's with, acupuncture or with herbs or with dialogue or Asia actually does have its own version of shamanism, or with shamanism. It will use all of these parts and pieces on a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level in order to help people heal. Now, interestingly enough, I ran across this idea when I was on this path, and it comes from indigenous medicines everywhere, which is healing. Not all patients who are healed stay alive. They don't all live. And healing doesn't necessarily mean that you don't die. Healing has, when we think of healing, we're not only thinking about the individual, we're also thinking about the fabric that individual belongs to, that tapestry, its community, its world. Because on a physical level, we are physically interconnected with everything around us. It affects us, we affect them, and figuring out kind of our place in that tapestry, in the structure, is what will help us along. So if you're dealing with IBS, we have to look at mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual challenges that you're going through. Hey, Karen. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what is causing your bowels to be irritable? What's causing this? What is happening in your life that is making your abdomen lock up and be unhappy? So let's look at the most common causes for IBS coming from this holistic, integrative Asian medicine. You know, there are all these parts and pieces and they all affect one another sort of mindset. What I discovered on my journey dealing with IBS was on the physical level, I was dehydrated. On the reactionary level, I had a sensitivity to dairy, and the dairy was irritating it. On an emotional level, I had enough emotion chemicals built up in my body from my past that I hadn't tapped into and got to flush out of my system. If you don't know about this, emotions are chemicals. And when we have a judgmentalism about how we feel, when we're angry about how we feel, when we think it's bad, when we think it's wrong, then those chemicals do not flush out of our system. The adrenaline doesn't flush out. Those chemicals don't flush out. And so what then happens is that they get reabsorbed in our body for the next time that something reminds us and tells our body to flood our system with those emotions again, with those chemicals again. So a lot of times if you've been through trauma or difficulty in your life and you haven't been in a place where you could feel it, you had to lock it down, you had to be strong, you were taught you needed to be strong, maybe you were too vulnerable and you didn't have any place to express it, and maybe you were taught, to keep everything locked down. What happens is those chemicals start to build up, and they will build up in parts of our body that are most vulnerable for us. So if I was already dehydrated, if I already had, sensitivity to dairy, then that's where those emotion chemicals would be absorbed. That's where they'd hang out. And so my emotions were causing a toxicity, which, of course, when you have something that's toxic, like putting something toxic on your skin, it irritates it. It caused irritation. So this, these emotions of 30 years that I hadn't, found a safe place to express, and I didn't believe I could express, were another step towards turning, a little bit of digestion issues into something that was bigger, like IBS. On a nervous system level, I had a pattern of belief that said I needed to be nervous or anxious or afraid of my environment. And part of that was because I didn't feel good. When you don't feel good, then your body's already stressed out and it's in a level of fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, what happens is your nervous system shuts down. It focuses everything on the most important things, which is survival and being ready to run. Now, a lot of us are in a state of fight or flight almost constantly. And we end up in that state because of the environment that we live in, noises and people and expectations, as well as the internal world that we have. Beliefs that we're not good enough, or that your identity of who you need to be. I need to be a strong, capable person, and there's nobody out there that, really understands me or really gets what's going on with me. And so this physical stress, mental stress, environmental stress takes us to a level of fight or flight. And when we're in fight or flight, then our nervous system shuts down and locks down. And where is it going to lock down? It typically locks down in the area that we feel most vulnerable. So, if you know anything about chakras and that sort of medicine, in our abdominal area, which in Asian medicine is called our hara, that is our place of power. It's also our most vulnerable place. You know all the stories about, bellies and, turning belly up, or dogs feel safe when, they want you to rub their belly, and they'll protect it at all costs. Our abdomen, where our intestines and our stomach and our digestive system are, is not protected well at all. It's not protected at all. And so if we're going to protect something, our body protects the most vulnerable part of us, that part of us that feels like it needs everything locked down and to be tough, so that nothing, to turn it into armor. Okay, so that locking down irritates it. And one of the last common causes of IBS is the food that we're putting in our body. We keep putting in foods which cause irritation. That's where the dairy came from. Dairy causes irritation and inflammation in your system. We're not designed to ingest it because of the proteins that are in it. Makes us feel great, and so I still love dairy. But I've learned which ones I can eat, which will cause more irritation in my system, and which ones I can't. So, I start to learn and learn my life, and what sort of foods do I eat, which pushes my body over the edge. So looking at inflammatory things that we're ingesting, which are causing inflammation in my body, the salt, the sugar, hey Tara, the processed foods, the whatever it is, that's going into my system and causing irritation too. Now, any one of these all by itself, your body would be like, hey, we got this, we're fine, it's not a problem. Maybe you'd have a little heartburn one night, but it would be no big deal. Your body would be strong enough. But when you start adding, and this is where Asian medicine comes in, when you start adding, the belief systems that you have, the absorbed emotions, the foods that you're eating which are causing, inflammation, the all of those things, when you start combining them, it overloads your system. And when your system doesn't have what it needs, like the good bacteria in your gut, when it doesn't have enough water, when it's locked down all the time and stressed out in fight or flight, when it's a sinkhole for all the emotions that you haven't tapped into and you thought you dealt with in therapy, but it was more talk therapy rather than emotional catharsis or purging of emotions. All of that adds up, and it turns into disease. It turns into something like IBS. So, okay, how can you start to reverse these things? What I would suggest is you start like all Asian medicine appointments do. You observe, you watch, you start to notice patterns. Now give yourself about 24 to 48 hours, because many things that, let's say, you eat or you do, you won't notice or feel for 1 to 2 days. So you need to start paying attention to, what did I do on this day? Did this person make me mad? Did I indulge in cheap ice cream? I don't eat cheap ice cream anymore. Cheap ice cream is not worth it, but good ice cream I can usually get away with. I don't drink milk. I make sure that I connect and watch movies and feel emotions, and I let myself have emotional catharsis, on a regular basis so that I can move those things out. And I work really hard on the ideas and beliefs that make me feel like I have to be anxious and afraid of the world. And the neat thing is, when you have this overload and it causes something like IBS, the opposite principle is also true. Everything works together to cause the disease that you have, but everything also works together to make you healthy and to heal your system again. Your body is designed to heal itself in ways we haven't even discovered yet. It's completely insane. It's off the hook that we can heal ourselves down to the DNA level, that our emotions have a direct effect on which genes are expressed and which genes are repressed, the good ones and the bad ones. So we have this power to heal ourselves, but the way we do it is in the same way that got us into trouble in the first place. We find the things, enough of the things that make our body and our mind and that make us feel good, that meet our needs. When we get enough of those things, then it reverses and heals the disease that we had. Think about it like a scale. If you have more things on one side of the scale which make you feel lousy, then you're going to feel lousy. But if you have more things on the opposite side of the scale that make you feel good, then you're going to feel good. So it's not about eliminating something completely. It wasn't about me getting rid of all dairy. What a sad, sad life that would be for me. You know, it's not about being the most spiritually evolved person. It's not about, you know, detaching from everything. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about the combination and the synergy of it, doing just enough so your body gets what it needs to balance out, to find a balance you like that heals the disease, that keeps, you know, the life choices that we make in check, you know, that overbalance that's in charge. So if you're working with something like IBS and you want to, you know, move through it, start with the observation about what you're doing in these various areas of your life and what, you know, what things will tip you over the edge and what won't. And it'll change. One of the things that confuses people is that they think, well, I had dairy today, but, you know, 2 weeks ago, dairy didn't bother me. Because it's the accumulation of it. It's the accumulation of the problem of what you're doing. And so this week, dairy may cause you a problem. And next week, dairy might not cause you a problem, but the dehydration is causing you a problem. Okay? So you need to pull in enough things that your body and mind like to overbalance, to change the tipping point so that your body will start healing itself. Our body can handle an enormous load of physical, environmental, mental, emotional stress. We are powerful and we adapt to things miraculously. It's so amazing that we can do this. But we do have our limit. If we reach that limit and we can't adapt too fast and we aren't making good choices, it's like we run out of time. And our body starts to say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. You ignored me, you betrayed me, you forgot about me, you pushed me, and now I can't do it. And you need to start making better choices that keep your physical self in a better place. Or I'm going to make your life completely miserable. So that's what you need to look at. If you're struggling with IBS, top ones, remember, hydration, a sensitivity to things, the emotional load that you're carrying, your idea that you have to be nervous in the world, you know, that you need to be on guard in the world, avoiding foods which cause inflammation in your body, avoiding environmental toxins that cause inflammation in your body, and getting the good bacteria and the healthy things, the healthy foods, the probiotics, getting that stuff back into your system. So moving away from the things that cause inflammation and towards the things that make you feel better is the key to really reversing this IBS. Because if you leave it too long, then it becomes a really big problem. And if you're tired of wasting your life, if you're tired of, you know, spinning around and feeling like this is where you are for the rest of your life and that you're stuck, you are in a limited mindset. You're in a mindset that believes that we don't grow, that we can't change, because you're in that place of high anxiety, of discomfort, of not feeling good. But when you start feeling good, you'll realize you have all this power. You'll break out of your fight or flight. You'll see things from a more rational point of view. You'll be able to problem solve the stuff that's coming up. Hey, Linda, good to see you. You'll be able to problem solve the things which are coming up in your life, and you'll be able to get as much life out of the life that you have. You don't have to wait for the next spiritual realm. You don't have to wait for the next life. You don't have to be miserable. You can actually choose to feel good, and it's not rocket science. You can do this, and you do it just starting with the observation. So, comment, like, share, comment on other people's comments, give me your stories, and if you haven't done it today, remember I want you to do the brain-heart synchronization. Slow down your breathing. Pay attention to, put your fingers, you know, on your heart, usually right next to your breastbone, usually where it's tender. Think something that's compassionate or happy or loving, and do it for 3 minutes. If you do that, it gets everything, it gets your brain and your heart back in sync, and it'll help combat this IBS because you'll be more relaxed and your body will work more efficiently. It won't be as stressed because everybody's trying to do different things. Because your brain's going right and your heart's going left, and your body's going left. It'll bring it into what they call alignment, into sync, and your physical self won't be under as much stress, and your IBS will dial down. Okay? So, thanks for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. I think we're going to do diseases all week, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. So, if you want any suggestions or work on specific diseases, heart conditions or headaches or dizziness or liver problems or adrenal fatigue or whatever, put it in the comments and we'll cover it this week and do a live stream on tips that will help you reverse that. Even things like OCD and why, thank you, Tara. Tara says I have a lot of Archangel Raphael around me today. How wonderful. How very cool. And thanks for sharing that with me. So even things like OCD or stress eating are issues that we can tackle because they're all integrated. Okay? So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.